Welcome, everyone. It's Wednesday, February 17th, 2021. This is the next installment of Rabbi Sam Silver Controversial Issues Forum. We are pleased to have as our guest Mike Essen, radio show host, blog host, and Rabbi Barry Silver. They're going to be discussing several things. I'll let Rabbi talk about the topics. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Rabbi Silver.
Hey, thank you so much, Sharon, for bringing us this wonderful series. Thanks to your knowledge of technology. My father was someone who was very interested in discussion. He did many debates. He often got people riled up and upset, but he was very congenial. And so we try to do the same thing here. We try to keep things rational and intelligent and respectful, but we speak our mind. And everybody's welcome to share any views they want without worrying about offending someone. My father believes strongly in getting different groups of people together and having them share a discussion. And thanks to modern technology and Sharon, we're able to resume his love for dialogue and debate. So we will do that again. And we have a great guest with us tonight, Mike Essen, who is a radio talk show host, a card-carrying Republican and a proud conservative, someone who has been with Va-Dor before on many occasions and survived the ordeal and has lived to come back and share another discussion with us. And today, we were going to discuss something that's very timely, the future of the Republican Party, now that a new administration has come in. And but today, sadly, we suffered a loss. And I am saddened by this loss. I'm sure many people are. Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh passed away today, so we're going to speak about his legacy. And even though I am progressive, I don't want to rush to judgment when it comes to Rush Limbaugh. So I will share some of my views later on, but I'd love to hear Mike Essen's take on the future of the Republican Party and the legacy of Rush Limbaugh. Mike, would you like to do this one at a time? We'll talk one.
Rush.
Okay. What do you want to start out with?
Rush.
All right, let's just rush right into it. Go right ahead. It's all yours.
I, as a conservative talk show host, was inspired by Rush Limbaugh. I was a young man at 17. He was starting out very interesting after he left the Royals with George Brett and some of those championship teams as a comical kind of, not a shock jock, but a comical issues and humor kind of host, much like his mentor Bob Grant, but just not as abrasive. You know who Bob Grant is, I'm sure.
Racy or racist?
Second one. but Rush revolutionized, was the godfather of syndicated talk radio. He inspired people like Sean Hannity, Michael Medved, Laura Ingraham, and me. And he has been through a lot in his life. He almost lost his hearing. He got fired from ESPN unfairly, in my opinion. He was he was a drug addict for a while and overcame that. And sadly, he's no longer with us, and it's the end of an era. And I think he's one of these irreplaceable icons, not only in radio but in the conservative movements.
Okay, go ahead. Anything else?
I will miss him, and I don't take my style after anybody in particular. I like to think I'm more original than that. But he will be considered by Talkers Magazine and many to be the greatest legend of all time in any radio business. And I'm very sorry to hear about his passing.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any shame in standing on the shoulders of giants. And the fact that you might have been influenced by him means that you know how to be successful by being yourself, but also by being able to learn from other people and emulate their style. All good speakers, all successful people do that. So there's no shame in following in his footsteps, so to speak. As far as my opinion of Rush, there's many things that I admire about him, many things that I think are good traits that we could learn from. And then some other ones that I don't necessarily think would be good to emulate. On the controversial issues series, and basically my style, and I think that of Va-Dor, is to try to follow the truth wherever it leads. So when someone passes away, we lament their passing, but we don't change our opinion of the person. Either they're a good person or they're not, their qualities don't change. So I don't necessarily ascribe to the view that when someone passes away, now we have to alter our view of him and now we can't say what we believe to be true. So I will be totally candid about my assessment of him. At the same time, I'll also lament his passing. He did have some health challenges, and it's sad to see him go. So let me start with the positive things. And I did notice some of the things that he said that I think are important for all of us to learn from. He said that we should not treat people as children. He believed that people should be respected and we should tell them the truth and not sugarcoat things. And I think that's a very good thing that we can learn from. It's very good to be direct, to be straight, to speak our mind, and not demean people by thinking that they can't handle the truth. So I like that about him. I respect that about him. He wasn't worried about what was politically correct in any way. He said what he thought needed to be said. I'm not 100% convinced that he actually believed all the things he said. He may have been saying certain things to get a rise out of people and to increase his ratings. Maybe he exaggerated his true feelings. I don't know. But I do know that I admire someone who speaks their mind, even if they antagonize people, because that's the only way we can ascertain the truth. He also said that we should stop thinking that we're in the minority. You see, in his day, conservatives felt like they were representing a minority view, so they wanted to walk very softly and didn't want to rock the boat. He said, have respect for yourself and speak your mind. And there's a lot of people out there who agree with you, and even if there's not, don't worry about it. Say what you think needs to be said. I think that's a very good lesson for all of us. He also said that people watch the news not so much to be informed, but to be affirmed. He thought that the news was veering over towards just saying what people wanted to hear instead of saying the truth. I'm not so sure that he wasn't part of that. I think he catered to a certain audience and he certainly delivered what they wanted to hear. I'm not suggesting that he was not conservative. I am suggesting that all of his views seem to go in one direction. I don't think he ever said a positive thing about a liberal, and he was normally quite supportive of the conservative point of view. He was very supportive of President Trump, which leads me to believe that either he was totally out of touch with reality, or he was not trying to tell the truth about Donald Trump and his belief system and his actions. I do believe that he deeply cared about this country. He was very concerned about it. He thought the country was going in a bad direction, and he tried to correct it. I think that's admirable. The most admirable thing about Rush Limbaugh that I will say that I truly respect and admire, he was a unique individual. He was someone who wasn't worried so much about how people were going to perceive him, and he lived his life fully as he wanted. And even though he passed away today, he put a lot of energy and enthusiasm and love and joy and passion into what he did. He was passionate, and I think we can all learn something from that. Those are all traits that I admire. The thing that I don't care for about Rush Limbaugh is that he was very funny, but sometimes, like, I think of funny lines, and a lot of times I use them, and some people think I have no filter. They think I just say whatever I want, but believe it or not, I actually do screen some of the things that I think about. And sometimes when you come up with a funny line that's offensive, it's kind of hard not to use it. I don't think his expression of feminazi was really a good thing to do. I think it's amusing and the alliteration is kind of interesting. But I'm not going to say I find it offensive because I don't care if I'm offended by it. I just think that it demeans a movement that was very positive in many ways. And to refer to them as feminazis, I think, goes a bit too far, not because it's offensive, but because it unfairly vilifies people and make them much worse than they are. I think that he, from my perspective, said a lot of horrible things about a lot of good causes. There are a lot of good causes, and he said horrible things about them. I don't necessarily hold that against him. If that's his point of view, so be it. But what he did regarding his views on climate change will have everlasting and profound negative impacts upon our country and our world. And that is something that we should be concerned about. Those are my comments about Rush. I'm glad to hear what other people have to say. I think, Mike, would you want to respond to what I said, and then we'll open it up?
Well, yeah, I think there's some truth to something you're saying. You see my comments on Facebook, I'm sure, from time to time, Barry. You hear, I don't know if you've heard any of my shows after the guest lead. That's when I get a little more riled up. Well, I'm exaggerating my views a little bit, not on other people's shows, but on my show to get an audience. Like, I'm thinking 70% anger at Raphael Warnock, but I'm gonna make it like I'm 98% angry at him. It's part shtick and part truth at the same time. And because you can't make every show Washington Week. That's not what talk radio is all about. It's entertainment as well as the truth. So I think there's, now, as far as him, he apologized for saying that Chelsea Clinton was a White House dog. I accept his apology. That was very cruel, and he was inappropriate, and he said that. Regarding feminazis, I have a different problem with it than you do. I don't like Nazi comparisons. I can't stand the feminist movement for many reasons, which is no surprise to anybody here. I don't think anybody should be compared to Nazis or Hitler. I like to leave him dead and buried where he belongs.
Well, Mike, I happen to agree with you about that. That's my objection to it, is that to brand them as Nazis is quite harsh. I don't like branding people as Nazis either. However, I do draw a distinction. Some people will get very offended at me for this, that there are some people who have Nazi-like tendencies. And for instance, if somebody's acting in a dictatorial fascist way, that's going to cause great harm, I don't think we need to wait till 6 million people are killed before we can start drawing comparisons. And so I think that there are some people who could be compared not to the impact that the Nazis had, but the tactics and the mindset and the belief system. Those things can be compared. The feminists, however, don't compare to them. They're in no way similar to Nazis. They're actually almost the polar opposite of what Nazis were all about. So I think the comparison there is poor. I have compared Donald Trump's attempted takeover of the Capitol to Hitler's beer hall putsch when he tried to take over the German government. And in the 1920s, you could see that Hitler behaved in certain ways very reminiscent of what Trump just tried to accomplish. I'm not suggesting that Trump has committed the types of evil that Hitler did, by no means. He hasn't even come anywhere near that, and it would be reprehensible to suggest that he had. But that doesn't mean that there aren't certain characteristics, especially Hitler in the 20s was not Hitler in the 40s. And so I think we need to be careful and learn from history about that. But that's a different issue. But Mike, I do feel that we are in pretty much agreement on many things. I understand what you're saying about a talk show. I've been a talk show host also, and I know that there's a tendency to want to embellish and exaggerate to get ratings, which is okay if the people know that you're doing that for entertainment. But if you're making up facts, or if you're taking a fact and misrepresenting it, or if you're taking a group and slanting things in such a way that they're no longer objectively portrayed to get a rating, I don't think that's proper. I think that's wrong, because
there a purpose of doing that? Yes.
Yeah, especially if you have millions of people who hang on your every word, and you were like, Rush Limbaugh wasn't just some average guy down the street. He was like the leader of the conservative movement. And if he was saying something, people would believe it. And if he's warping the truth in order to vilify certain people and grandize other people, it's the problem. All right, anybody else? Anybody else want to share their thoughts?
Hey, Rabbi, Joe,
Yes.
how you doing?
Good, Joe.
Okay,
How are you?
All right. Some of the stuff I agree with you on that. On people, see, with Rush, he is a satire. He used a satire to make his point, and most people that listen to him, all 20 or 25 million, whatever his ratings was, knew if they're regulars that it was satire, and he made his points through satire to get his message across. Yeah. They call these people that are regulars called ditto heads. I knew Rush. I lived in New York. I knew Rush for years before he came down to West Palm Beach. I knew him in the 80s. Been on the show a couple times, which is very hard to do, and all that. You gotta understand where he's coming from and his tendencies to express things through satire and through music. And he's usually a one-man show up until the end. All he had was Bo Snowley, which Mike and I both know and met. He's been on his side up until the end. And it was his wife that came on the show this morning to announce his death. But he actually ran the show up until about a week ago. And we kind of knew at that point it was over. But the thing is, the influence that Rush had was across party lines. He was the godfather. People were listening on both sides of the aisle went to listen to his show for whatever reason. And that's what made him unique. And yeah, he had a lot of hateful followers back, and some of that hate's being expressed on Twitter today. And the John celebrating by the left, celebrating his death. But most of the people on both sides actually gave their condolences and respect. That's the difference. As far as Trump, we need to move on from Trump. Really, we got to worry about what's going on in the country today. And things of that nature, not from what happened the other day. Look, there's still an ongoing investigation going on federally, and not just in the House, the Senate on January 6th. We will have, and there may be a commission. I hear Nancy Pelosi doing a commission similar to 9/11 on that. We'll eventually know all the facts out there. And that's where it should be, but we need to focus on what's happening, like why is the stimulus not done? Why, things of that nature. The government funding ends in a couple of weeks. We need to get that going. We have people who are homeless. We need jobs. We got the weather situation where people don't have electricity because the turbines went frozen up, and things like that. We need to concentrate on other things and forget about Russia at the moment.
Joe, I happen to agree with a lot of what you're saying. He did satire, and many of his people understood it to be satire, but many did not. Many people were heavily influenced by what he said. And even though he was making jokes and doing satire, they accepted it as gospel. And he did embellish to make progressives look horrible and to make conservatives look great. And he misrepresented the facts and the truth. Some people might have recognized it as satire, but even if they did, they still get a good laugh and maybe believe what he was saying. So I think I understand what you're saying, but I don't know if that totally whitewashes him. I do agree with you.
I'm not whitewashing him. There are people people listen to different things from across the area. People that Rachel Maddow, they believe what she says, or Cuomo on CNN, they believe what he says, or Tapper, what he says, or Rush when he was alive doing this thing, or Ed Koch. What I really love, going back a little bit, Voice of Reason, Ed Koch, Bob Grant. This brings me back to Jack Spector. I've been involved in all those people. That gives you my age. But the point is, if you listen to talk radio, it's a lot different. And some of the satire on the news, because some of the news that you see here, they're not accurate either. They all have spin, left spin, right spin, and you got to understand, people have to understand the spin, and that makes it very difficult if you all listen to talking points. And people are getting tired of that stuff, and they're starting to, where is what used to be? And that's the problem. Rush was the pioneer. He was the golden mic. He will set the standard for talk radio across the country and the world. And there's a lot of people trying to follow in his footsteps. I today on the Mike Essence show told him he is South Florida's Rush Limbaugh now. He is the voice of conservatism talk radio here in South Florida. And it's all we have now is Mike and Joyce Kaufman, basically. And that's the key.
Yeah, if I may respond, I was in the middle of trying to make my point. I do agree with you that he was, as you could say, the godfather of talk radio, but talk radio is highly divisive, partisan, and hateful. and I think he has a lot to do with it. So I think we need to look at him realistically and say, yes, he was an entertainer, he did satire, but he stretched the truth and embellished it and set people at war against each other and never bothered to try to remedy that. If he was just doing satire, he could have said at the end, oh, by the way, I was just joking around, these people aren't really that bad, but he didn't. He set people against each other in a really vicious way. And I also agree with you about Mike, but I think Mike is superior to Limbaugh, because Limbaugh intentionally misrepresented things to get a rise out of people and to get ratings. Mike doesn't do that. Mike has a conservative point of view, but he doesn't intentionally inflame or say things that aren't accurate in order to try to get people to watch him. Mike might never get the audience that Rush Limbaugh had, but that to me is not how I evaluate whether someone's successful or not, by how many people listen. I evaluate by, are they telling the truth? And are they being honest? And are they allowing a fair discussion? Mike does that, in my opinion, better than Rush did. And I do agree with you that he represents, to me, a hope for honest dialogue. As far as
Mike and
Rush,
if
I may continue about what you were saying about Trump, I could not disagree with you more, because if you use my same analogy with the beer hall putsch, when Hitler tried to take over by force in an armed insurrection, which really is what Trump did, he was put down. And people said, let's just forget about this guy. He's a clown, he's a joke, he's this, he's that, he's in the past. And they did, they forgot about him. Next thing you knew, he took over the country. Trump still has tremendous support. Maybe you think if he took over, that's fine, I don't know. But to me, he's a clear and present danger. And not only that, the dangerous thing is not just that he would run and win, which I don't think he can, but if he runs and loses, the last time he ran and lost, he almost took over the government and had mobs coming in to take over our capital. So the running and losing is a very, very, very dangerous thing for him. And I think it would be foolhardy in the extreme to ignore the threat that we have.
I don't think he's
let's have somebody else speak. Sharon wants to share some thoughts.
Sherry Brenner, you want to read it, Sherry, or do you want me to read your question? Okay. So what influence will Trump have on politics in Florida? I'll put that out to Mike and Barry.
That takes us into the next issue about the future of the Republican Party. So go ahead, Mike.
Sure, future Republican Party. I'm a conservative first and a Republican second, just like I see Barry as a progressive first and a Democrat second.
Correct.
I think the party has an identity crisis at this moment. They don't know where they stand. Even during the Obama years, when they fought for things they could never win, like the repeal of Obamacare, at the time they couldn't, and defunding Planned Parenthood, which I agreed with them at the time. They're not fighting for anything today. They're getting along to get along. They vote one way and say something different the next day. And I don't even know if they're conservative, moderate, or what they are, because, and also, I was very upset at them for not supporting the $2,000 stimulus package, which I think, Barry, you might agree with me on that, because people need help now. People have to pay their bills. People have to feed their kids. There's no time to think about the deficit at a time when people have lost jobs and lost lives. Right. I think that hurt them too. I am a Republican, registered because they come closest to my views. Like I detest what the other party stands for, but I think they're having an identity crisis. They're not fighting, and their PR is horrendous. I had the chairman of the Miami-Dade GOP on. He agreed with me on that, and I just can't see them agreeing on anything now. They're just all over the place.
You know what, Mike? I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the Republican Party would do really well to listen to you, because you are a consistent voice for truth and for conservative values. And you don't go with the wind and just go with political considerations. You're not a lackey of the Republican Party. I like what you said. You're a conservative first and a Republican second, just like with me with the Democratic Party. If they do something wrong, believe me, I'll be all over them. And I think they need to listen to people like you, because right now they're the party of Trump, and it's like a cult. And if you say something bad about them, then they come out upon you like a ton of bricks. And I think that's a really dangerous place to be. What I said is that if the Republican Party is going to back someone and support them 100%, who would try to take over the government, that would threaten our democracy, that would set a lynch mob on Pence, and have Confederate flags flying, if that's what the Republican Party stands for, the party is over. And so that's why Right.
I would worry about that.
Yeah, well, I also think this. I think that it's important to have someone to hold the Democratic Party in check. And it is important to have a second party. I happen to agree with what you're saying about people in need. Right now, there are people who are suffering horrifically. I know because I get calls from people. They're being tossed out of their homes. They don't have anything to eat. They can't find work. The suffering is intense and it's immediate and it is pandemic, the amount, and we do need to do something dramatic. But I disagree with the plan to unleash $1.9 trillion and to give checks to everybody and their sister. I think it's mindless. I mean, when you're dealing with that much money, is the Democratic Party and is our Congress not even capable of determining who's in need and who isn't, and just writing a check to every single person? To me, that's insane. If you're going to talk about that type of money, find out who needs it. I know it's difficult. I know it's hard, but find out who needs it and get it to them, and don't give it to everybody. It's just mindless.
Yeah, they're trying to do that. They're trying to vet them, but it is difficult. I agree with you, Barry.
Yeah. Who else wants to weigh in on this? What about the future of the Republican Party, where they're going from here? Go ahead, Suzanne.
I'd like to say, you have just mentioned that people are calling you every day and saying how they're, suffering and they're homeless and this. And really what I'd like to talk about more is what can we do to help these people? Like, we're having this Saturday service. I was thinking maybe we could get some people together as a social action group where they contacted you and said, I'd like to be part of something that can take action in the community and do. Because I look at things like rising gas costs and things like that, and how that's really difficult for people to make ends meet. In the last month, gas has gone up like 50 cents a gallon. And when I hear and speak to people every day on the phone that are suffering, they have children that need to eat and they can't pay their bill. And, the kids are working from home and going to school. And, I deal with that because I, do internet sales and things. So I look at these things and I'm saying, well, what are you doing what do you tell these people?
Yeah, well, that's an excellent point. It's not the topic of our discussion tonight, but it certainly should be the topic and the focus of our congregation. By the way, this Saturday, we're networking with the food bank and we're trying to get food to people who need it. And Va-Dor has done a lot of things in that regard. So I agree with you, Suzanne, that we absolutely need to focus on that. We have been, and we need to do it even more. But that wasn't the top. The top topic tonight is the legacy of Rush Limbaugh and the future of the Republican Party in a post-Trump age. Who else wants to weigh in? Steve, you had something to say?
Yeah, I'm not going to say much at this point because I just want to say that when you do have that topic, if it's next week or as soon as you have it, please let you and I make a plan for the agenda, because we have that all set up and ready to go. And the in-crowd is looking for groups that want to get involved in a meaningful way. We have on the one side of the bridge people who can really use the help. On the other side of the bridge, people who want to give some help. So if I'll not go further on it, but we have that all set up. And Suzanne, either you can get in touch with me, or Barry, I'd just as soon speak to you and make a plan tonight after the Zoom or tomorrow.
Well, Steve, I know you're not going to go into it in detail, but I will mention to everybody here that Steve West has done a tremendous job of galvanizing the religious community behind trying to help people in need right now. And we absolutely will be working with him and the in-crowd. He's got a network, and Va-Dor will be happy to participate in that network to try to get help to people. That's exactly what he's doing. I don't know a better person to work with to put into action what Suzanne's talking about. So we'll definitely be looking into that. And I thank you for all your work that you're doing. By the way, Steve, if you want to be at our Shabbat and celebration of Black History Month on Sunday and share some words about the or Saturday morning, rather,
Saturday,
and share some words about the in-crowd, you're more than welcome to do it. We'll be there from 10:30 to 1:30, and if you want to be there, or someone from your group, to let us know what we're doing, the platform is yours. Okay?
Now, is that the in-person one, or is that a Zoom?
no,
This
that's
is in person.
person.
It's our first time that we're going to be together for a Shabbat celebration in a year. It's
Yeah.
going to be at Bryant Park, Saturday, 10:30. We'll be celebrating Black History Month, and we will be talking about what we can do to help this community and to help people in trouble. Suzanne also asked me, like, what are you doing? I get calls to help out legally, like somebody's going to be evicted, or somebody is being sued because they can't pay a bill or something like that. So I do a lot of stuff as an attorney to try to help them out. But what I'm able to do is limited, and my resources are, you know, there's only one of me, but I only mention this because I know that there's a lot of people suffering intensely, and I know everybody's pretty aware of that, and we all need to do what we can to try to help. Go ahead, Emily.
This is a concept that's going to get both of you upset. I am a liberal, but I really am angry at both political parties. My experience with the Democratic Party, I was a delegate to the '84 convention, and that was the last time I did anything for the party, because going there was the biggest waste of money. It was a party. So I see these two groups of people who revel in getting together and giving money to candidates, whether they're good candidates or bad candidates, because they affiliate with the group. So I think the first thing we have to do is say campaign reform. This business of 2 years of campaigning is absolutely ridiculous. Canada has a 6-week limit. The amount of money that can be spent on a campaign should be limited. Give money to the poor, give money to the infrastructure. Don't give money to these two groups of politically social people. I think that it's corrupt to begin with. A fire on both your houses.
Emily, I agree with what you're saying, but I'm not sure why you think that Mike or I would be upset with that. We both agree 100%. When I served in the Florida legislature, I filed bills to try to take all the money out of campaigning. And I refused to raise money from special interests. And the Democratic Party tossed me out. They turned on me like a ton of bricks. Because when I got elected, they said, okay, here's all the lobbyists we want you to meet with them, have lunch, and find out what they want. You can raise money from them. And I said, I don't raise money, I raise issues. And they said, in that case, you're not a team player. You'll never serve a second term. And they turned on me with a vengeance and went after me. So there's nothing that you're saying.
I remember all that.
Well, there's nothing that you're saying that I disagree with.
We were also lobbyists, poor lobbyists. We never asked for money. We asked for changes in medication and in policies. I just think that this whole two-party system contributes to so much corruption and evil.
Yes, we have auctions, not elections, that go to the highest bidder. You'll get no argument from me or from Mike. Mike, you concur with what Emily's saying 100%, right?
Yeah, I always think writing to your congressperson sometimes is a waste of time because lobbyists take over. I mean, it seems to me that's the case here. I don't think we should have limits on spending, and for me to give to a candidate, and I'll tell you why as a conservative I feel that way, because the media is so overwhelmingly liberal, progressive, either way one you want to call it, that
How about factual? In
your mind, it's factual.
But
you agree with it's factual, right, Barry?
It would be simple, Mike.
Hold on, Emily, you got to
let him finish. Let him finish his point.
That it would shut out any conservative candidate who did not have $1 billion or $1 million, and that wouldn't be fair to the system. If somebody can raise, like we had a candidate down here, I'm not going to bore you with their names, but they knock on doors, they raise funds, they're the underdogs, they get the money, they win. That's the American system, that's the American dream. And yes, people hear their messages because if you don't knock on doors, you're not winning a campaign.
All right.
I agree with you. I'm surprised I say that. I agree with you. I think another reform that has to happen is cut out paid TV ads. You know, you're running, you get a 3-minute ad, as I said, for 6 weeks before the election, whether you're conservative or liberal. The whole system has to be revamped.
I agree with you.
You'll get no argument from us. But let's stay with the topic. The topic is the future of the Republican Party
I want to say one thing about the future Republican Party, if I may.
Go ahead.
We have a fine governor who many Democrats, who has 90% approval rating, who's done a lot for the environment. You know, the pine rocklands, the algae. He's kept us away from social distancing in this, not completely. I wish he'd do more, but I'm not a fan of lockdowns at all. I think it's terrible. I find it degrading that I have to wear a mask and have to stay home. He made a mistake the first time and did all that, but he's done great for public schools. He's done great for the economy, and I think he's keeping us from being a Marxist dictatorship at this point, and that'll help the state because DeSantis and we have a red state. And he told people, if you wanted to fund the police, which is the most insane idea of my life, you don't have funding.
Well, Mike, we have a Democratic president. Do we have a Marxist dictatorship now in the United States?
We're leaning towards it. We're getting there, and I'm scared of it. I'll tell you why.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll tell you why.
Okay.
He's under the influence of Bernie, AOC, and all the people who are, if they weren't valid, if they're not communists, I'm not sitting here. They wanted to fund the police, so they're tearing down statues. The cancel culture movement is because of them. He took the National Guard, put it in front of him. He's taking everybody's constitutional rights away. Second Amendment, First Amendment, everybody's being censored. He's trying to pack the courts. That's what dictatorships do, and it's scary, Barry. You're probably a little concerned about it.
Mike, you're off topic, but I just can't resist. I mean, what you're saying sounds patently absurd. Even Rush Limbaugh, I think, might hesitate or blush to say some of the things.
I guess some of the people I talk to in the Republican Party agree with me.
Well, the Republican Party probably would agree with you. You mean the same people that brought us Donald Trump? But let me just ask you something. You say that he's following in lockstep with AOC and the defund the police. Did you hear him say that he doesn't believe in defunding the police? Did you hear that?
I don't care he's a liar. He's a liar, and he could do it tomorrow.
Oh, God.
Okay, Mike, let me ask you something.
He lied about his son.
Mike.
You know what I mean?
Mike.
He's lying where his lips are moving. Sorry,
Mike, you say he could do it tomorrow. What he said repeatedly, I don't believe in defunding the police. He's taking no action to do it. So how can you tell people tonight and repeat Republican, I'm not even going to say talking points, I'm just going to say bald-faced, blatant lies and say that he wants to do, and no, let me finish.
Go ahead.
And accuse him of trying to defund the police. He said unlimited times, I don't believe in it, and he's taking no steps towards it. How can you say that?
He goes with the rest of the territory, Barry, and I don't believe that he is, and I don't believe anything he says, except I believe his actions, and it's akin to dictatorship.
Okay, then I'm going to ask you one more time. What action has he taken towards defunding the police?
It's who he associates with. It's not the actions he's taken.
Okay, who does he associate with? You mean the people that he said he's not?
Kamala Harris, AOC, and Elizabeth Warren, and all those lefties.
He's rejected their influence.
No.
And let me just finish, Mike. I respect what you said so far, but to suggest that he's going to defund the police, even though he said nothing about it, he said repeatedly he won't do it, he's taking no action towards it, and for you to say, well, he associates with certain people, that's just totally misleading. It's reckless, it's irresponsible, it's Trump-like, and I think you should retract that. I think if we're trying to have an honest discussion.
He's not saying it, but too many people are. I'll retract it.
Okay, well, we're getting somewhere. Okay, who else wants to speak?
Barry, can I respond to that?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. First of all, a lot of people know who I work with and stuff. I'm an independent contractor consultant in law enforcement, federal, state, and local. I've been involved in law enforcement for many, many years. I had a contract, independent contract, working with the Justice Department, including the FBI with Trump. I have just got the same deal with Biden. So far, Biden has not gone against the police yet. We are watching, but we are also doing what we need to do. The only area that we really have a problem with him right now is when it comes to immigration and the wall and that area. Both the ICE and the Border Patrol, the unions and stuff like that, they all agreed that they will not do or break their oaths and the Constitution. And if they commit a crime, they will arrest them and do what they have to do. That's what they did with Trump. They're going to do it again with Biden. Likes it or not, we will do our job. So far, Biden has been good when it comes to law and order. So far.
I appreciate that, Joe. I do want to ask you a question. You've been watching. Did you watch when the Capitol was assaulted by Trump's? Let me finish my question. Let me finish my question.
Go ahead.
Did you watch when the Capitol was assaulted by Trump supporters carrying Confederate flags and beating officers with American flags, which resulted in the death of an officer and the wounding of many more? And did you also watch when, after that was done and he sat back and did nothing, he said, "Remember this day, I love you, you're patriots, and this is what happens when we have an election stolen"? Did you watch that? And if you did, what do you think about how he treated police officers?
Okay. First of all, there's several things. One, his rhetoric is still is covered under the First Amendment. You can't punch him on that. But people should understand things. And also, we just made an arrest. The head of Antifa in that area was arrested after he was paid $80,000 or $100,000 by MSNBC and CNN to film his stuff as he led the charge. We have that.
What kind of fucking shit?
That's number one. The CNN and MSNBC both.
Hey, Joe, you know what? You're not answering. You're not even close to answering my question, which means that you're not watching. You're excusing.
If he incited the riot, and he is under investigation, he will be arrested. And I
asked you what you thought about it, not what you thought about CNN, AOC.
I thought Trump was an asshole. Plain and
Very
simple.
good. That. All right, we agree on that.
I think that was a mistake. I think his ego went over his head, and it cost him. It also probably makes sure that he will never run for office again. He's done.
Joe, I'm glad to see a voice of reason from you. Thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
I'd just like to ask Mike a simple question. How do you define lie? How do you define lie? Because what you did was take a man who's got a lifetime of telling the truth, and maybe there's been a few mistakes by him or lies by him, and compare him to the biggest liar that I've been in contact with in my life. How can you not call Trump a liar and call the Republicans who are backing him liars with this big, obvious lie? How can you do that? This is why we're on two different planets right now.
You can be on two different planets, same world. I'm not saying Trump, of course Trump lies. Every president's going to lie at one point or another.
Not like him.
I'm not excusing you. Let me finish, please.
Sure.
But I'm somebody who thinks we are over-focused on Trump, and I want to tell you why. And I was wrong for what I said about
Mike, first answer his question, then talk about why we focus on Trump. Answer his question.
Sure. Biden lied when he said he had no ties with China, and his son didn't either, and he lied about that. That's the one thing he lied about, and I'm not comparing him to Trump. Now I'll talk about why we're focused on Trump. He's on holding public office at this point, and I was somebody who during the Clinton era, this is related. At the time, I was wrong. I was one of the third who wanted him out of office, but it took up so much of the country, and we had war for 3 terms. We need to focus on how to help the people now and the people in office now, and we can do it together, to come together like Barry and I do on this show and on Friendly Fire and here, and make the best country we can make, instead of worrying about a president like Obama or Trump or Carter or Clinton or Bush Sr., who's no longer in office.
Well, you want to help the country. Let's just take the biggest issue right now in the country, which is the health care. The one guy totally walked away from it, totally lied about it, totally really caused damage and death. And this other guy coming in for a very, very short period of time has taken steps to really get it under control, to alleviate it. You wanted to look at what people are doing. Look what Trump did. Look what the Republicans did. And look at what Biden in this very short time has been able to organize. He's almost up to 3 million shots a day. He promised 1 million shots a day, and he took over with 600,000 or 700,000 shots. And I won't go through the whole story because you know it, but all of the things to organize, all of the things to get shots in people's arms, to buy the vaccine. How can you say this guy is not helping the people? He's saving people's lives when the other had total disregard for people's lives.
I want to take issue with you on Trump and healthcare. Okay, he made an executive order to cover everybody with pre-existing conditions. Sorry, the word escaped me. He was on warp speed for the vaccine, and he luckily, I wish he would have repealed Obamacare and replaced it with the HCHC, the affordable, I forget the name of it, the HCHC or H.
Affordable Care Act.
He was unlike Reagan in that sense. I was talking about this on my show today, which is very related. He wanted to reform mental health. He had pharmaceuticals were at the lowest price. When Reagan, although I love him as president, kind of wanted to cut everything. So I disagree with you that he didn't do anything about that. Biden is there early. I don't agree with you that he wants to expand Obamacare and make it the law of the land. That's a big mistake.
Do you agree, Mike, that Trump took credit for things that didn't belong to him? Have you seen any of that in his character, both before and during his presidency? I just want to ask you that question, then follow up. But
give me an example first, because there's so many things that have happened. I'd like to know what you're referring to. I'm sorry.
Well, let's do it directly. We'll do it directly and stay on the point.
Okay.
Warp speed, he took credit for. Money was what motivated more warp speed. You could have had Mickey Mouse in that place, because it's the companies wanted to get that out and to make money with it. They also wanted to do some human good. Let's give them that credit.
He pushed it.
But Trump took the credit for it and really didn't deserve, because he was playing golf. Where was he? Where was his program?
Operation Warp Speed was his program. They helped him. They were cooperating.
Let me jump in here for a minute.
Go ahead, Barry.
I'm a Star Trek fan. I know about warp speed. Warp speed is fiction. It doesn't really exist in the real world. And what Trump named it well, because what he was doing was fiction. The Pfizer vaccine was done without a dime from Trump. They said, we don't want anything to do with you. And it was done by Israel and Israeli companies and a lot of Jewish scientists, and it was done independently. He had absolutely nothing to do with it, and he claimed credit for it. Steve's question's a good one. You know, Mike, like all day long, he's taking credit for things he never had anything to do with, and he's blaming other people for things that he had everything to do with. That's his whole personality. Let me just talk about healthcare. Okay, he took a program that was going to protect people with pre-existing conditions and other people, and he did everything he could to destroy it. What you're talking about is complete, utter fiction. He did zero to help people with pre-existing illnesses. They were helped because of Obamacare, which he tried to take away. There's under Trump, there's all types of people who had no access to health care, and he never showed one indication that he could care less. Not only that, he tried to take health care away from people. And I don't know if you understand the ramifications of it. I think you do. If you don't have health care and you get sick, or you have a terminal, or you have some kind of horrible condition, you die. Lots of people died because they had no access to health care. And Trump, he's psychopathic in not caring about it. He did nothing.
You're done. Let me respond, please.
I'm pretty much done.
Okay.
And you should be done with him.
It was repeal and replace, not repeal then replace. He had a plan in place. I don't know all the details, but he was an ACHC or something like that. And then he had pre-existing conditions in the law. Scott Walker even opposed it because it would have made his state have to take that. He didn't agree with it. Then he signed the executive order. You can look this up. where everybody's covered by pre-existing conditions. So
Really?
he's not trying to take away your coverage or the insurance. He doesn't agree with government control where you can't even choose your own doctor.
Mike, they're already covered by pre-existing conditions under Obamacare.
Not all.
Not all the way. Cancer patients were not covered.
He did. He did nothing.
I have friends that know that.
He took credit for what he was trying to restore. Isn't that what you're saying, Barry?
Yeah, and he also had no plan. You say, I don't know the plan. Don't feel bad, Mike. He doesn't know the plan because there was no plan. In all the years of Trump and before him, there was no plan to help people without health care. I'm surprised that you don't understand this or get it.
Warren Hatch had a plan. Warren Hatch had many plans when he was in the Senate.
There was no, they kept asking for the plan. He had no plan whatsoever. He just wanted to take it away.
Not Trump, I'm talking about the Republicans.
All of them. Anyway, let's talk about something else. Who else wants to jump in? Joel, go ahead.
Barry, there's so much going on here. You know, we got to get the fact from the fiction. You got to spread it out, get fact over on one side and fiction on the other. It's a game. They're playing a game, and they're playing a game that's costly because people are losing their lives because of it. It's a game in Congress. It's a game, the Senate, the congressman. Graham is playing a game now that we don't have the Attorney General because he's playing around. He got on TV yesterday or whatever it was with Fox. Fox, that's a dirty word for me. But anyways, he got on with them. He made no sense for a man who's supposed to be intelligent. Where did he lose it? McCain in heaven, God bless you. He is turning over in his grave, McCain. This was his buddy. Johnson, did you hear from Johnson in Louisiana? I don't understand. I'm not a Democrat, Republican, Independent. I'm a middle of the road guy. I look at facts, and if you can't understand that, you go on the Facebook and you hear these people come up with these ideas. Now, you talked about the kid, Hunter Biden, the laptop. What's his name? The Giuliani comes up with he gets a laptop with a label on it from a guy who was a computer guy who got it from supposedly somebody. The FBI's got it now, whatever it is. It's all bogus. It doesn't make any sense. And by the way, you believe that the Democrats were smart enough and intelligent enough to steal the election? They did all the boobameises that they have to do to steal the election. It was the Democrats. It wasn't Trump that was stealing the election. He was sealing it.
Are you asking me a question, sir?
I'm asking you a question, what you thought about the steal of the election by the Democrats.
Sir, if you ask a question, it's only fair I answer it.
Well, try.
I will try. I will try.
Do your best. Do your best.
I'll give you, as Pat Benatar once said, I'll hit you with my best shot, fire away. The Minion machines are the same ones they had in Venezuela. They called Arizona too early. John James lost the seat because it was stolen. In Georgia, there was an investigation to it. I mean, they found dead people showing up at ballots.
They were dead. They were dead. Yeah, only the dead people showed up. Look, I'm from Chicago. Mayor Daley, we voted gravestones all the time. That was what we were always accused of. You're voting the gravestones. Shades of Mayor Daley. They weren't going to vote for anybody else but Mayor Daley. He didn't have to worry about gravestones. He didn't need the gravestones. The people were, Mike, you're not going to like my language, but the people were pissed off. The people in the United States, the 80 some odd million that voted for Biden, and plus some of those that are the 74 million that voted for Trump, they're pissed off. They're pissed off about a lot of things. And all you do is spew this QAnon stuff, the stuff that doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah. Well, when you're doing bogus things that are, it's fairy tales.
Exactly.
It's fairy tales. I don't like talk. I don't like what you do. I don't like what those people do. Tell us the facts. By the way, 17 years the COVID vaccine has been worked on in the laboratories. 17 years ago they started in the laboratories. Fauci told the whole story. He had no axe to grind not to tell the truth. It was accelerated when they got to the point with this new type of virus vaccine. Trump had nothing to do. It was up to Trump. We wouldn't have anything. We weren't getting the PPE. We weren't getting anything. What are you got a disaster going on. You got a fire going on. You turn the water on. No, I can't turn the water on because you know what? The water costs a lot of money. We'll only turn it on for 2 hours a day, but the fire's burning. I'm done. Barry, thank you for this very lovely evening. I'm getting agita.
I appreciate that.
Bye, Barry.
I just do want to ask you though, Mike.
Sure.
You do agree that when Trump said that the coronavirus was a hoax of the Democratic Party, when he said that the Chinese are doing a great job, when he said that the coronavirus would disappear in a month, in 2 months, in the summer, in the spring, when he said that don't worry about wearing masks, don't worry about separate, don't worry about it, it's all going to go away. It's like the cold. And when he admitted it to a reporter and said he was trying to downplay it, you do understand, right, that lying to the people about the worst pandemic in a century, you do understand that caused the death of many, many, many people. How many people, we don't know, but you will agree that trivializing of it and saying it's all a hoax and therefore not doing anything to try to stop it, and not doing anything, how would he wasn't developing the vaccine, he was calling it a hoax.
At that time, I partially agree with you, Barry. Let me explain it to you where I come from.
Well, how many people died because of that, in your opinion?
I don't have statistics, but let me just tell you, I'm not going to defend him in this case, but let me just say my opinion.
Good.
He should not have trivialized it, but I'm going to sort of, which you're going to think I'm trivializing it now, but I'm not. The COVID is a very serious problem, but you don't die on its own. It's 99.9%, 7% recovery rate. It's serious. People have died from it. But it's about context. I, being overweight, will die from it if I get it. People have cancer like Herman Cain will die from it. Most people don't die just because they get it if they were to follow the rules. I think there is an overreaction, but not to the point where Trump talked about it. That's my answer. And we have a question.
I got 2 things to say about that. Don't forget COVID-19, the actual virus, it's been around since the 80s. The gentleman was right. And it was listed next to common cold. The thing is, if you overestimate or underestimate, it's not good either. The idea is that Trump trivialized that was a mistake. But again, we follow the rules, we'll be fine. But it is a 99.8 recovery rate.
I still hear people trivializing the coronavirus, which has killed 500,000 people. I can't even. We don't know
if that's all the virus or
no. Actually, Joe, we do know. The scientists who actually tell the truth. Real scientists have told us that it's a lot more than that is underreported because a lot of people die from it we don't know about. You're trivializing something that is the worst pandemic in a century. Let me just finish with this. I think we can close the discussion. The discussion is, what is the future of the Republican Party? I will make this prediction. If people continue to try to support a bald-faced, egotistical traitor, and they try to latch the Republican Party behind this guy, the party is over and the Republican Party will never recover. How do I know that? We already saw what happened with the Whig Party when they couldn't get their act together about slavery and it disappeared. The Republican Party backed a conspiratorial lunatic called Joe McCarthy, and the party took a decade to recover. Now they're supporting another McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy, with his conspiracy of silence. If the Republican Party doesn't learn from the past and they continue to try to back Trump and they don't absolutely repudiate him and learn and move on, I predict the Republican Party will be so horrific. It'll either disappear off the face of the earth or they will never win another election until they finally recognize that they allowed themselves to be duped by a con artist, a liar, and a traitor. And until they recognize that, their party is done. And as far as people who say, hey, Silver, stop talking about it, let's move on. When somebody commits a murder, you don't say move on. You say, let's hold him accountable. That's how you move on. He said that he could kill somebody on Fifth Avenue and his supporters would still support him. He underestimated it. It's not just one. He could cause 5 people to die in the Capitol. He could cause hundreds, like tens of thousands to die in the coronavirus. He could try to take over the country, and his supporters will follow him. He was right. He underestimated how gullible they are. But for the rest of us who are clear thinking, we need to help the Republican Party to repudiate him and to move on, because we do need a counterbalance to the Democratic Party. And I hope that all of us will do our job in encouraging dialogue. Mike, you are the hope for the Republican Party. You are the voice of reason. So keep up the good work. Thank you for appearing with us.
Can I get my website out, please?
That's my conclusion. Now you give your conclusion and we're done. Go right ahead.
Hi, I enjoyed being part of this great program, and I thank all, and I'm glad to do this dialogue with you. I'm on 4 days a week on blogtalkradio.com/Mike Essen Show, MIKESSEN, 4 o'clock. This Monday, we have someone who's debated very many times, and I've been on his show, and he's been on mine, Tom Trento, debating a secular humanist, Andrew Seidel from Freedom from Religion Foundation. It's going to be simulcast. And one more promotion, Barry, that's all I'll do. And Tuesday, I got Sam Von Trapp, the real-life grandson of the Maria and Baron Georg Von Trapp, to talk about the true life story of the Sound of Music. Thank you so much.
Mike, you're doing great things, but I'm